Om Shri Swaminarayan Namo Namaha Shri Hari Krishna Maharajaya Namo Namaha Shri Sadgurubhyo Namo Namaha Om Ganganapate Namaha. Welcome to SwaminarayanSpirituality.org. This is Sachin Karnik. Today is the 24th of October 2024. I want to offer my prostrations to all the sages and to Bhagwan Swaminarayan, Shriji Maharaj, all of the Paramahansas of Maharaj, all of the devotees of Maharaj, all the incarnations of God, all the great sages, devotees, bhaktas throughout the world today, in the past and yet to come. With that prarthana, we are continuing to examine the question of Maya and the power of dhyan. What is the extraordinary capacity that opens up within a bhakta when that bhakta reaches a stage of dhyan on the murti of Bhagwan, Bhagwan ni murti, as it is said in the Gujarati, original Gujarati. So along those lines, we want to examine further today a particular verse of the Gita. But before we get to that, I just want to make it very clear that these recordings are for my own benefit primarily. If they are useful to anybody who is listening, if any ideas from here are meaningful and they're applied, they are creating any kind of spiritual progression further, that is the blessing of Bhagwan. Right? So with that in mind, just a quick reminder that this question is posed by Govardhan Bhai in Garada Pratham 1. And the question is about the form of Maya. Bhagwan ni Maya te kahe chetanu roop sushe. Maharaj answered the question, when there's a devotee, a bhakta, Bhagwan no bhakta hoy, then Bhagwan ni murti nu dhyan karta je padarth adu avine avran kare. Tene Maya kahiye. We have been examining this line now for some time. So Maharaj is talking about the process of dhyan that a person engages in devotion. And as we mentioned already, that dhyan is a very evolved state. And to understand this better, from the perspective of verse number 22 of chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita, we're going to look at it in that way, right? So the verse is as follows: Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janana paryupasate. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janaha. It should be ye janaha. I didn't say that right. See, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janaha paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yoga kshemam vahamyaham. This is an extraordinary verse. Very famous and very popular for those who are students of the Gita. Verse number 22 in chapter 9. We're going to examine this now for a while, cross-connect with many ideas already discussed, and to go further wherever Bhagwan takes Sachin here in the Nirupan, by the grace of all the sages. So first of all, the first word here is ananya, ananyaha. What does that mean actually? So the word ananyaha signifies exclusive devotion. It implies that the bhakta has no other object of attention, love, or contemplation apart from the divine, apart from God, apart from Paramatma, beyond Akshara Brahma. And please remember, I will be trying to present the pure and total spiritual teachings of Vachanamrut and connecting them with other sampradayas, other teachers also. And I'll mention that when I do that. But I want to stay true to the spirit of the Vachanamrut as much as is humanly possible. It is a par excellence and transcendental scripture, right? So anyway, let's be very clear that the state of dhyan can be achieved by the beginning of exclusive devotion. The start of exclusive devotion is quite rare in life. Mirabai, a great devotee of Sri Krishna, had this. Tulsidas Ji had this. The Paramahansas of Maharaj had this. Ramakrishna Paramahansa had this. These are people that we know. There are probably thousands that we have never heard of who also have it. We may have it also. We don't know. We cannot say about somebody else. But we can see within ourselves, do we have exclusive devotion? So, exclusive devotion can begin by starting 9 forms of devotion, Navadha Bhakti, slowly doing scriptural study, more and more contemplation, and start walking the path that is laid out in the Sanatana Dharma. Once we start doing that, this exclusive dedication, devotion to the spiritual path is what is meant by ananyaha. Right? So, it is very, very important, very powerful, because it is ananyaha chintayantaha. If you break up the words, ananyaha chintayantaha mam. Mam meaning Bhagwan. Bhagwan Krishna is saying on me. Right? So that is Paramatma, Parabrahma, who is speaking there. That is saying that is me. Keep your undivided attention, unfragmented, non-fragmented attention on me in a meditative, contemplative modality. That is called Chintan. So Chintayantaha. Chintayantaha. Right? Very interesting. So, as we progress in our sadhana, as an individual is performing sadhana, as a bhakta is performing sadhana, this verse number 22 of the Gita in chapter 9 is one of the most significant teachings in spiritual traditions throughout the world. Maybe one of the topmost, because Bhagwan Krishna is directly telling all of us, using Arjuna as a nimitya, as a means, he's telling the whole of humanity to meditate with undivided attention. Ananyaha chintayantaha. Right? So, the development of exclusive devotion is what Shriji Maharaj is, in my commentary, is talking about when he uses the words Bhagavan no Bhakta in this line. Why he didn't use another words? Why he didn't just say just a Manushya or just a person? He could have used some other language. Jai Manushya Bhagwan ni Murti nu Dhyan. Why he didn't say that? See, the language is extraordinarily precise once we really unfold it. He's talking about the stage of devotion. Now, it's not just a stage of devotion, it is an exclusive stage of devotion that can be developed, and it is only through the doorway of the exclusive stage of devotion can the state of dhyan come about in the heart and the mind of the bhakta. The cognition and the emotion bridges together in the extraordinary harmony, and that synchronicity brings about, it opens the doorway into dhyan. Dhyan meaning meditative absorption in the murti of Paramatma, where bhajans, manan, chintan, kirtan, mantra sadhana, so much, it's all churning again and again without break, which then, where that dhyan, once it is established, that full establishment of unbroken dhyan, that is akhanda vritti, which we talked about in the earlier recordings. So the implication of ananyaha in this extraordinary verse is that the bhakta has no other object of attention, meaning absorption, attention. Yes, the bhakta is performing all action as seva, as we talked about before, seva and mahima, performing all kriya as per Pujya Yogiji Maharaj gave that sentence, and that was written in the commentary in the BAP's app commentary that yes, every seva, every action can be seva. And that's a big thing, to bring all of our activities in the 24-hour cycle into a modality of seva. So no activity is done with the individualized ahankar, with any type of divisiveness with anybody, right? So that implies saintliness and sadhuta and saintly qualities. All that is already embedded in that dimension of seva. But seva plus the mahima, the glory of God, which we started talking about a couple of days back. We'll get back to that because that's also connected into this. So that extraordinary mahima, glory of God, it is absolutely essential, because without that, there's no possibility of ananya chintan. How that will happen? It cannot happen. The glories of Paramatma, things like omniscience, omnipotence. For example, take these two, which we started talking about last time. These have great significance in the recognition and realization of the unparalleled majesty and sovereignty of Paramatma. The majestic nature, the way this is described in Vachanamrut, Bhagwan potana akshardham nuche takhat che, ena upar betha che, sihasan upar betha che. It is a symbolic representation in one sense at our level. Symbolism at another level, there is a mystical dimension, there is an ontic dimension to all of that, right? But it's the majesty, like the word majesty, right? It's the kingly state, that God is the king. He's the sovereign, the control of everything. Everything is in his hands, in its hands. We cannot really say he or she. That murti that is an akshardham is not male or female. So there's no he or she in that. It is Satchidananda Vigraha. Aksharatit, beyond Akshara Brahma. So these kinds of attributes, the reflecting on the attributes of the glory of God, such as omniscience and omnipotence, which are core aspects, they bring about great glory. My God, that Bhagavan exists and has these qualities that are infinite in nature. The attributes are infinite in nature. But meditating on those attributes is necessary, as I mentioned before, because the attributes not only underscore God's nature, but also shape the foundational beliefs that underpin faith. Where does faith come from? Faith is born when we meditate on these beliefs, and that's where the foundation of belief and faith comes about, where ethics and morality come about, and the relationship between us and God also is established. And all of this, which I just mentioned, is the base for Ananya Chintan. Right? So, the intricacies of these attributes are extraordinary. There are many philosophical and theological contexts. Many, many, many. Right? So, for example, omniscience refers to God's attribute of possessing complete and infinite knowledge. He knows everything. I'm just going to say he for the purpose of convenience, but you can say she if you want, or that divine being. The pronouns are a problem a little bit because they don't adequately explain the actual tattva. No language ever can anyway, right? So anyway, omniscience means all-knowing, sarvagna. Just one quality. Bhagavan is sarvagna. People who are devoted to God believe that. God meaning Bhagavan. When I use the word God, I'm talking about Aksharatit Paramatma in Vachanamrut theological context. So omniscience refers to God's attribute of possessing complete and infinite knowledge. Knows everything. There's a beautiful verse in Hindi, tan ki jane, man ki jane, jane chit ki chori, uske aage kya छिपाए जिसके हाथ में दोरी. He knows everything. Everything about us, each and every thing, this life, millions of lives in the past. And yet what is to still come, he knows that too. So this knowledge encompasses not Not only all that has occurred in the past, but all that is occurring in the present and all that will occur in the future. You see how extraordinary that is? It's impossible for us to even imagine what that power is like. That is a matter of faith, that Bhagavan is omniscient, sarvagna. Well, if that's the case, then the connection through the heart and through the mind, through dhyan, is solidified because omniscient quality is held in the devotee's mind as part of the glory of God, as part of His glory. And that glory is held with more and more contemplation, so that devotion occurs, because meditating on these qualities and then worshipping God with the knowledge of His qualities takes our devotion to that point of exclusivity. So omniscience extends beyond the confines of time and space, meaning that God is aware of every detail within the universe and beyond, whether known to human beings or hidden from their understanding. In Vachanamrut, or somewhere in Swaminarayan scriptures, I think it's in Vachanamrut, Maharaj said that Kidi na pagma jhanjar, epan Bhagwan samble che. Like the small ant has a small jhanjar, meaning a small, what is that? Like a toe ring. Just an interesting analogy. How tiny is that ant? And one ant has a tiny metallic toe ring in one of its legs. And the sound it makes, God hears that. Something like this is mentioned in the Vachanamrut. Somewhere it is mentioned. It's very interesting, right? This is sarvagnata, omniscience. Just look at this quality. If we probe into it, it's amazing. So this vast scope implies that God's sarvagnata, God's knowledge, is not merely passive or observational, but integrally, it's integral. It's integrally, I'm not saying that word right for some reason. It's integrally active and encompasses every aspect of creation, meaning Bhagwan nu je tej છે, અન્વય શક્તિ છે, એ સાકાર જેવું કામ કરે છે અને અણુની અંદર રહેલું છે. એ અણુની અંદર પણ છે અને વ્યતિરેક, meaning, I'm translate that for you, that Bhagwan is present in every pore of existence, is integrally active, encompassing every aspect of creation, that is the Anvay Shakti, and is also Vyatirek, transcendental, and by himself, by that Murti is by itself, unparalleled and singular. This is the part of the Tattvic understanding. So the omniscience quality is just one quality that is present in the integral presence of Paramatma, encompassing every aspect of creation. How amazing this is. How amazing. We can just keep probing. There will be no end. And that is the beauty of Mahima. There's no end to this probe, but we want to do Manan Chintan. Sachin is trying to do Manan Chintan for Sachin only, and to present to the world as a seva, to present to God as a seva, and the God, that same Paramatma, is in the heart of everybody. Because the more we contemplate, the better off we will be. Okay, so let's go a little bit further here in the Bhagavad Gita verse. So we already said that the word ananyaha is the very first word out of the whole verse. Ananyaha chintayantaha mam. Right? So the stage of devotion that reaches exclusivity, and that's exactly what is meant by ekantik dharma, ekantiki bhakti. Shriji Maharaj has put devotion at the highest stage, where it is ekantiki bhakti, meaning enjoined by dharma, jnana and vairagya. Those three are infusing, and they are infused inside bhakti. And so all four are infused within each other. In Vachanamrut it is mentioned, ek bijani apeksha. That means that one is dependent on the other three. For dharma to flourish, the other three have to be there. For jnana to flourish, the other three have to be like that. And there's a whole Vachanamrut on that, which we'll cover at some point by the will of Bhagavan. But this exclusive devotion is called ekantiki bhakti. And then if you take that even further, one level, ekantiki bhakti even flourishes into what is called Brahma Swarupini bhakti. That you have realized the oneness with Akshara Brahman. And in that state of oneness with Akshara Brahma, there is exclusive devotion to Purushottam Narayan Parabrahma. Akshara Roop Thaine Purushottamni Upasna Karvi. This is Siddhant in Vachanamrut, Swamini Vato, Gopal Swamini Vato. And if you extract the thousands of scriptures, you'll find the same essence. It is the tremendous bridge between Advaita Vedanta and the devotional strands within Sanatana Dharma. Shruji Maharaj pulled it together time and time again. You can see it in his language. We can see it in his karya. We can see it in his life also. That these two are not contradictory. Advaita Vedanta, Vishishta Advaita Vedanta, Brahma Vishishta Advaita, or Achinta Bheda Bhed, or all the different forms of Vedanta, they're all correct. Not a single one of them is incorrect. And Maharaj in Vachanamrut has pulled them all together. Again, that's a bit of a tattvic discussion, but nonetheless, it has implications in terms of the exclusivity of bhakti, which is then going to open up into Tattva Darshan itself. Tattva Darshan is that opening into the vision of the Panchabheda, Jeev, Ishwar, Maya, Brahm, Parabrahm, as we talked about in the earlier recordings in Akhanda Vritti, that one actually sees them by the grace of Paramatma. But as I mentioned before, the bhakta is relying 100% on God. There's a total reliance on Paramatma for the spiritual progress and on Guru, Satpurush. One is not emphasizing one's own egotistical sadhana. Sadhana is performed, but that sadhana is performed by the sadhak with the understanding that sadhana is performed by ishtabal, by the bala, meaning by the power of Bhagavan that is present in the mind, body, etc. And that by the will of God, the agnya and the sadhana and everything is carried out by His will. It is not that I am performing sadhana. See, this is where the Maya comes into the picture. When I am performing sadhana, all the obstructions are going to the I is the biggest obstruction. But we want to get to that point where the obstructions are not there, the avaran and vikshep and all those things we talked about before. They don't exist anymore. Right? So that's why Maharaj is saying that if you are a devotee and you're a bhakta and you're trying to do dhyan and these obstructions show up, that means you are still there's still some kind of ahankar there. Now, he didn't use that word in that sentence. But if you look at that sentence again, Bhagwan no bhakta hoy, tene Bhagwan ni murti nu dhyan karta je pada. See the word karta there? That implies ego. So he's, if you really analyze this, and Sachin's commentary is simple on this one, that you don't be the karta of dhyan. Let dhyan progress naturally by using the bala of Paramatma. Let dhyan come naturally out of tremendous love, because love is already there. But the problem is in sadhana, the sadhak has that feeling that I'm doing dhyan. See, that's a much more implied meaning here in this analysis. It's a difficult thing to kind of explain in short time, but do the best we can here. I have some time today, so that's fine. It's fascinating. See, Maharaj could have used another word there, but he's very clear. Bhagwani murtinu dhyan karta je padartha adu. That word karta, that's where the whole problem is right there. When the bhakta is in a state of dhyan without doing dhyan, then the division between the me and the activity of doing dhyan towards Paramatma vanishes. That division obliterates completely. then the avarana breaks right there. The avaran shakti, vikshep shakti, there's no obstacle remaining at that point. And then when obstacle disappears exactly at that point where ananya chintan, meaning exclusive devotion, exclusive contemplation, erupts. Exclusive contemplation abides, remains. It's tremendous, right? So this absolute focus is the key in Bhakti Yoga, because Vachanamrut is Bhakti Yoga. The entire type of yoga that is propagated by Shriji Maharaj, implemented by him and practiced by him also, because he showed what bhakti should be like. He demonstrated it. He didn't talk about anything that wasn't in his life. So he fully demonstrated what is bhakti. He demonstrated bhakti, he demonstrated Ashtanga Yoga, he demonstrated Jnana, it's all in one. But the path that he has shown for the masses and for even for his disciples, devotees, and as well as his paramahansas, etc., is a path of bhakti. And that path of bhakti is extraordinary love for God, sneha, the attachment that is already in the body consciousness towards the vasanas, etc., pleasures of the flesh, as the Bible would say. All those kinds of things are pulled out from that realm and placed in devotion. Flesh is there, body is there, everything is there, but the mind is no longer seeking those limited enjoyments that are body related, that are ego related. No, they are uplifted beyond that limitations of the body, limitations of the sensory pleasures, the Vishaya Sukha. And there is a transcendence out of the polarity of Sukh and Dukh. And the Panch Vishayas, they become equalized. Samatva. Madhya 13, Vachanamrut Maharaj said, Amne samatva cha Panch Vishayama. We'll look at that in when we look at the Vishayas and all that another time in the future. But it's all the same. You can pick up Vachanamrut from anywhere. It's the same truth that is being explained, but to approach it through variety of ways is what we're attempting to do. And it's not a static truth. It's the most extraordinary realization one can possibly imagine. You can't even imagine it, actually. Has to realize. Anyway, let's go back into this. So Maharaj Bhagavan Krishna is saying in the Gita, verse 22, chapter 9, Ananyaha, the first word in this verse, right, where Bhakti Yoga is opened, it's open to its highest stage with all of the foundational steps in place, where the mind and the heart are entirely absorbed, not partially absorbed, they're entirely absorbed in the contemplative connection and the devotional bhakti, the emotional and contemplative bond with Ishtadevata, with Bhagwan, manifested form, or the Murti of God. It's not a partial absorption, right? So dhyan, achieved dhyan, a sthiti of dhyan, a state of dhyan, is where Bhakti Yoga, the way it is described here, is where the mind and the heart have reached a state of total absorption, that the mind is absorbed inside bhakti. That is why in Swaminarayan Sampradaya, the devotees, they do what is called Lila Chintamani in the evening or before going to bed. Pratham Shri Harine Re Charane Shisha Namau Nautam Lila Re Narayan Gau Mota Munivar Re Ekagra Kari Manane Jene Kajere. It goes on like this. This is called Cheshta. So there's devotional activity done before sunrise, from waking up all the way until going to the bed at night, for everybody, householders and sadhus, and everybody's doing devotion. Like those who are serious Swaminarayan bhaktas, their day is filled with devotion. Vyartaha kalena netavyo Bhaktim Bhagavato Vina. Maharaj has given this Agnya and Shikshapatri to everybody. He's given it to the sadhus, I think, maybe it's in that section, but it's actually for everybody. And that is, do not waste time. When free time is there, jump back into devotion. It's very simple, but it's very hard also in many ways, because our mind wants so many other stimuli, and we do need to live in this world. We need to interact with the world and keep the mind balanced. So this Ananya Chintan is not something that one just jumps into, but it can be developed. It can be developed gradually, slowly, and it can be developed in a much faster way the more mahima and seva there is. Then other things automatically diminish and dissipate. You don't wind up watching so much TV and stuff like that, because it's the same thing again and again. That is vairagya. So the vairagya comes into the picture also. So to reach this state of ananya chintayanto mam, to reach that vairagya, gyan, bhakti, manan, chintan, meaning what, there's so much involved in it to reach that stage, which is then dhyan, that leads to dhyan. Okay, so now, in a deeper sense, anyanyaha, this word suggests where the ego and all kinds of distractions and attachments in the material world are dissolved. The entanglement, the harmful entanglement in the material world is literally dissolved. It's literally dissolved. And that's what Shriji Maharaj is talking about as far as dhyan, as far as the connection with Paramatma. Because dhyan is that extraordinary power that will dissolve the ahankar completely. It will eliminate all the distractions and obstructions completely, and it will remove every form of entangled attachment to the material world. It will dissolve all three of these. And the bhakta is then in union and communion with the divine, with the divyata, with the sadhuta, with the Paramatma. The reason Sachin is speaking this is for Sachin, for this mind. But there's a great joy in trying to pull together these various points of knowledge and wisdom that are in the scriptures and given by the sages and by Shriji Maharaj himself. And it shows the intense depth, power, and infinite wisdom that is present in each line of Shri Vachanamrut. That is its glory. That is its glory. Okay, let's go a little bit further here. So, this word ananyaha, of course, it has profound implications within the entire framework of Bhakti Yoga and the larger discourse of spiritual development, the overall spiritual development. I've just summarized a lot of it right now. As a descriptor of devotion, because that's what this is. It emphasizes not only the absence of multiplicity, but the presence of an all-consuming singular focus on Bhagavan. I want to make sure that point is clear. So the description, the utilization of the word ananyaha means that there is an all-consuming singular focus on the Murti of God. I'm connecting this word ananyaha with the answer Shriji Maharaj gave. Right? So, again, right now, as Sachin is speaking, you're listening, whoever is listening, we're just trying to understand these ideas. Understanding it, is Shravan level, Shravan Manan level. Fine. Then it will increase further and then actually take us, by the grace of God and saints, we will reach that state of Ananya Chintan. So the goal is not just to stay at the level of this initial presentation. Goal is to actually move into that dimension of Ananya Chintan gradually, but it can be done. Right? So the point here is that there is an absence of the multiplicity, meaning all of the noise and all the programming and conditioning that is in our mind, and that's all we're bombarded by that all the time. That stops. It stops. One is able to remain and live in this world without being affected by the world, by anything in the world. One is not hating the world or running away from the world. One is unaffected by the multiplicity of names and forms and the interactions thereof, of the objects and people and places and things of the world. Totally unaffected, but there is seva done towards the world. Sarva bhuta hite rataha. And in such a state, there is the presence of an all-consuming, singular ekagrata, as we mentioned before in the Nirupan, ekagrata purvak chintan. That singular focus on God. So, the root of the word ananyaha, which is an plus anyaha, directly translates to without another, suggesting that there exists no secondary object of thought or concern or action beyond the object of one's devotion. In this case, it is Bhagwan Nimurti, the Supreme Being Himself. I hope that point is clear. I want to make that clear again. The word ananya, the word is ananya. It means without another, suggesting, the word suggests, if you would try to explain this in our English language, that there is no secondary object meaning object, person, people, places, situations, stories, memories, this, that, anything and everything except the Murti of Paramatma is considered to be secondary. We do need that for survival and for interaction. We can put that as seva and bhakti and put it inside the Murti of God through seva and through there's multiple ways of going about it. But when dhyan is present, when a bhakta is trying to meditate, I wouldn't even say trying, when a person has reached that stage of continuous dhyan without friction, where the trying has stopped. Of course, we need to place effort in the beginning stages, but the purpose of placing effort, meaning purush prayatna, is to get to that point where the activity of dhyan is effortless. Prayatna vagar ananya chintan. Right? So I hope you're following all this carefully, and I hope you're also staying in your own sadhana. Because remember, Sachin cannot tell anybody anything. He has no right to tell anybody anything. Sachin is not asking anybody to do anything. This is Sriji Maharaj's words. I'm just giving an exposition on it for prasannata. That's all. So you'll have to look at this yourself, where you are in this process. I have to look at it myself. Gunatitanand Swami said, Potana kalyan madrashti barabar rakvi, bijanu loto joto. You keep attention on your own development. Don't worry about anybody else. Guide others if necessary. Learn from others. If you have Guru, ask questions to Guru. I'm always available for Mananchintan. Not that I'm anybody's Guru or anything like that. We are together, walking the path together. Right? So we can always, as friends, as devotees, we should always do what is called Goshti. Gnan Goshti is called. It's a Vaishnava tradition, Vaishnava term. This term Gnan Goshti is called Vaishnava. It's a Vaishnava term which is then used in Swaminarayan Sampradaya also. Anyway, I don't want to divert too much into that. But the point here is simply that a stage of ananya, once we are coming close to that, all secondary objects, meaning all these other things, memories and people and places and desires and everything except the love of that Paramatma, it literally is no longer holding any importance in the mind. It is important functionally, like Vedanta will say Vyavaharika Satyam. Yes, it is important functionally, transactionally. Like you have a bank account. So you have a bank account, you have a car, a TV, a home, this. You have to have all that in the relative world. And even that is placed in the light of God. But there's a functional reality. Ananya Chintan doesn't mean that one stops eating food and one stops taking care of the body. And it's not like that. You have to, we are functioning at different levels here. So at the relative material level, there is a material level natural interaction that has to be performed. If we don't perform it, then we'll not be able to reach the ananyas chintayanto mam state at all. We'll not be able to reach that stage. We'll be stuck with problems in the material world, which we do not want. Right? But anyway, that's another subject altogether. But it's not another subject, but it's just one of those more foundational things, which I don't want to repeat that stuff here. So when a bhakta reaches a stage of ananya chintan, dhyan, manan chintan, that there is just a tivra mumukshutvam, strong mumukshutvam, the desire, sadvasana has increased. See, another way to understand this is that sadvasana has increased to such a level that the asadvasana is obliterated. Asadvasana is kam, krodh, lobh, moh, matsar, asha, trishna, irsha, rag, dvesh, ahankar, maru, taru, chal, kapat, all that mess that is there, that thing is obliterated permanently from the mind. And that is the blessings of Paramatma. Bhagavan says there, Tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. That comes later on. We'll talk about this later. But for those who are constantly engaged, the devotee is taken care of by the Lord Himself. I carry them and preserve what they have, and whatever there is missing in completing their journey towards Paramatma, that is provided. Whatever needs to be taken away is taken away. Whatever needs to be provided is provided. All extraneous things are taken away. That's what happens. See, those who are constantly devoted to me and worship me with unwavering faith, I provide what they lack and preserve what they have. Provide what they lack also means taking away the things that we don't need, and then providing satsanga, providing food, water, clothing, shelter, opportunity based on the mindset, etc. That technology is in the hands of God. That is a guarantee in this verse. This is verse number 22, chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita. How fantastic is this? Yoga kshemam vahamyaham. That I will give you the yoga. I will provide the situation, circumstances, everything you need. Vahamyaham, not somebody else is going to give. I am going to give it directly. Either through somebody else or however, but it's me that is giving. Me meaning Bhagavan. And what is He giving? He's giving that opportunity for the devotee, for the bhakta, to reach the state of ananya chintan, where there is no secondary object of thought, no secondary concern, no secondary action beyond the object of the devotion. So nothing else is of predominance except Bhagavan. That is ekantiki bhakti. That is exclusive devotion. That is exclusivity. It is a radical form of exclusivity, in fact. And the word radical is not to be used in a negative word like radical politics or something. It doesn't mean that way. It means intense form of exclusivity. Like Ramakrishna Paramahansa, like Premanand Swami, like Brahmanand Swami, like Gunatitanand Swami. Gunatitanand Swami said that if I forget Sriji Maharaj for even fraction of a second, my mind my whole head will explode. Some statement like that is made. Taadu fati jai. For one fraction of a second, God is not forgotten. What a state. What an amazing thing this is. Gopis are like that. Radhika ji is like that. You see? Amazing. Amazing. And in Christian tradition, many nuns have been like that. Mystics have been like that. The Sufis have been like that. And are even today. In the Muslim tradition also it is there. It's anywhere, in any tradition, when there is extraordinary exclusivity, a radical form of exclusivity is ananyaha. And that transcends physical and mental preoccupations. Our mind is preoccupied with God knows what. We know that, and that's what Sriji Maharaj is saying, that once we are setting that destination, that Bhagavan, Dheyo Narayano Harihi, as Vedvyasji mentioned, that this destination is set once and for all. The sooner the better, and once that destination is set, not to deviate from that at all. And that lack of deviation from that destination is an intense and radical and profound form of exclusivity. And once that form of exclusivity is reached, the bhakta transcends physical and mental preoccupations, which denotes a higher stage of consciousness, higher state of consciousness in which the self, the ahankar, dissolves it completely into the divine, into the Paramatma himself, through absolute identification, which is exactly what is written in Shikshapatri Shlok 111, where Bhagavan Swaminarayan says that sometimes Radhika ji is on the left side of Sri Krishna, and sometimes she is absorbed inside Sri Krishna out of extraordinary love, and at that point he shall be known as one. Now you'll have to listen to that again probably at some point. I don't think I'll ever be able to say that again. But whatever that was said there, that is 100% correct, for sure. So this state is akin to the highest form of dedication. This state is like, in fact, it is the highest form of spiritual dedication. That spiritual dedication is complete dedication. Those who are real devotees are dedicated to seva. And you'll find, by the way, in temples, in the religious organizations, as much as I sometimes will say about some of the issues and problems of religious organizations, but the fact of the matter is they are only a means to an end. What we are describing here in these recordings, humbly, with the great respect and love for all, this is spirituality. It transcends the boundaries of organizations. But the organizations are needed. They are necessary. They are a beginning point. But they are not the end. The religious organizations are a doorway. They're like a ladder to reach this Ananya Chintan state. So they are necessary. You need to have a means to an end. Even right now, I'm using a voice recorder. It's a means to an end. My voice is being used. Some words are being used. Some references are being given. What is all that? That is a means to an end. It is not an end in itself. So we always need a means to an end, including all the gurus. All the gurus, the teachers, the different sadhanas that are shown. So many things, all the scriptures, they are a means to an end. They are not an end in themselves. The end is, meaning the goal is the Dheya. Dheya Tattva is Parabrahma, Purushottam Narayan, Aksharatit Paramatma. That is inside the Aksharadham. That is the essence of the Aksharadham, beyond the Aksharadham, in fact, but residing in the Aksharadham. That is called Dhami. That Akshardhami is the goal. That is amazing. Right? Alright, so having said that, we're talking about spiritual dedication. This is found in various religious traditions, where the devotee at the highest stages is inseparable from that divinity, divyata, that Paramatma. There's such a oneness between the two. Choto ekane di socho doya eno bheda jani shake koya. Nishkolanji has written this in Bhakti Chintamani when he describes Nar and Narayan. When he describes Badrika Ashram, that Nar Rishi and Narayan Rishi is the incarnation of Narayan Bhagwan. Nara is a liberated being, but he's the ideal devotee, Param Bhakta. And Shriji Maharaj installed in the first Swaminarayan temple, Nar Narayan Dev, in the Ahmedabad Kalupur Mandir, Alaukik Murti, is tremendous Murti, and that is the Murti that is there in Badrika Ashram. So that is a more philosophical, more high-level idea. But that is called Nar Rishi and Narayan Rishi. And all the liberated souls of Badrika Ashram are doing tapasharya there. And they are absorbed in divine meditation on Bhagwan Narayan. So the incident is like this, that the devotees are sitting in the Badrika Ashram and that Nar Rishi comes. And so the devotees say, you are just like Narayan. And that Narayan Bhagwan comes and says, we cannot see the difference between the two of you. Choto ekana diso chodoya. You are so similar. In fact, you'll see the Murti that is Pratishthit in the Nar Narayan Dev temple, in the Ahmedabad Kalupur temple. They look nearly identical. But there's a slight difference, right? In terms of height there's a slight difference in posture, maybe hand gesture or something. Otherwise, you cannot tell the difference between the two. That is the indication of the highest form of this inseparable devotion. Extraordinary. Now, just let's take one back step, not back step, but just a more little bit of a foundational understanding. When we say spiritual development, that refers to the process of evolving one's psychological consciousness and the inner self to achieve greater harmony, understanding, and connection with God. That's the general idea. Spiritual development is not Sachin just knowing more and more, just making more and more recordings. I'm just using myself as an example. That's fine, but I could wind up in some wrong kind of understanding also. That I'm doing something. The I comes into the picture, there is no spiritual development. So spiritual development in its real sense refers to the evolution of one's psychological consciousness from within. It's the level of connection that is there. That is what Maharaja said. Who is the one who has higher buddhi? One whose intelligence is connected with that Paramatma. That is the one who is buddhivan, not just one who is just worldly, very intelligent, right? Okay, so this should be kept in mind. This journey of spiritual development, of course, it involves virtues. And this is another point that I want to really emphasize. Virtues. Without virtues, meaning ethics, morality, that is called Saddharma. Without that, we'll not be able to do any dhyan. Kuch hoga bhi nahi. Nothing will happen. Sadhuta is necessary. Sadhu jeevi koi moti padvi nahi. The highest virtues are necessary. Things like compassion, humility, wisdom, dissolution of the ego, overcoming dvaita bhav with others, conflicts and things. All the 64 divine qualities of the saints, as written in Hari Gita, in the Satsangi Jivan. These are the virtues, right? So they are necessary so that one can gradually transcend all the limitations of the material world. We're living in the material world. The material world is going to remain exactly as it is. Look at chapter 15 in the Gita. Chapter 15 in the Gita is also extraordinarily clear on this point. That Bhagwan is saying in chapter 15 in the Gita that you have to cut down this poisonous tree. It's quite an interesting discussion. Chapter 15 only has 20 verses, by the way. Just 20 verses. But the verses are absolutely amazing. He talks about the fact that in verse number 2, that the branches of the tree, this is an analogy that is given, extend upwards and downwards, nourished by the three gunas, with the objects of the senses as tender buds. The roots of the tree hang downward, causing the flow of karma in the human form. Below, the roots branch out, causing karmic actions in the world of humans. This is verse number 2, chapter 15. You can look it up. I won't do too much exposition on that right now. I'm just putting it here as a reference. And then in verses 3 and 4, he says, the real form of this tree is not perceived in this world, neither its beginning nor end, nor its continued existence. But this deep-rooted Ashwatha tree must be cut down with a strong acts of attachment. Asanga shastrena dridena chitva. This is verse number 3, chapter 15 of the Gita. You see, so without this realization, because chapter 15 is Purushottama Prapti Yoga, and that is exactly what Sriji Maharaj is leading towards in this, that you're meditating on Bhagwan Purushottam, Parabrahma Paramatma, in the state of Akshara Brahma, doing dhyan. These obstructions are coming, and these obstructions are cut away. One of the ways of cutting down the obstructions is to cut this tree down with the strong acts of vairagyam. It's a very, very interesting verse number 3, chapter 15. Shastrena, asanga shastrena. Asanga means what? That I am completely, I meaning the mind is absolutely in a state of asangatva. Asangoham. I am totally in a state of aloneness, and I am with Bhagwan and Bhagwan ke Bhakta. And that same Paramatma is seen in all. So I'm with everybody, but with no attachment towards anybody. Attachment is to the 2 feet of Bhagwan. Bhagwan na be charanarvindi upasna. And the devotees, ideal devotees, etc., that they are for our guidance. Upasya Murti in Swaminarayan Tattvagnan is only of the 2 charanarvind, be charanni upasna, the 2 feet of Paramatma. That's what it's called. It's called Shuddha Divya Upasna. But to reach that, this asangatva, asanga shastrena dridena chitva, tat padam parimargitavyam. You see, so tat padam. So verse number 4 then begins that way. Then one must search out for the base of that tree. Tat padam, that padam meaning that state of realization. You see where this entire creation has come about. Yasmin gata na nivartanti bhuyaha. Yasmin gata na nivartanti bhuya. Once a person reaches that padam, that is the Akshardham, there's no coming back into this sansar again. Yasmin gata na nivartanti bhuyaha tameva chadyam purusham prapadde yatah pravrittihi prasruta purani. Amazing, absolutely tremendous. I mean, we could spend a whole lifetime discussing this, and that's what life is for. This actually, our life is to do brahmachintan, not to be stuck in this material world and be running after kanchan, kamini, kirti, and just the vasanas, and to die one day and doomed inside the material world. That is not our purpose of life. Life is not for that reason. Shankaracharya ji himself said, one is committing suicide again and again by wasting time, energy, money, effort, everything in these vasanas that are burning the sansar alive. That is asad vasana. There's burning the sansar. The jivatma is stuck inside there. So that's why in these verses in the Gita, chapter 15, Bhagwan Krishna is saying, most clearly, one must search out for the base. Now, what is that search, by the way? Searching out for the base of that tree, this verse here that says, Tat padam parimargitavyam. Tat padam parimargitavyam. Amazing. That means that find out that marga. Marga means path. But that path is from inside. It is an internal path that opens up towards that padam. Parimargitavyam. Shriji Maharaj described that as Archi Marg inside Vachanamrut. Garada Pratham 23. We'll talk about that. What is that Archi Marg? And then the history of Archi Marg in the Sanatan Dharma scriptures. Why Maharaj is using that word? What are the scriptural references to that? We'll get to that entire discussion in the next question of Muktanand Swami, probably next year sometime. We won't even get to the third question until January probably. So tat padam parimargitavyam yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuyaha. This is the goal, that once we reach that Akshara Brahma, Akshardham, meaning beyond Sahasrara Chakra, our consciousness is awakened in the extraordinary bhakti, then one is living in the world, but one is living, meaning the divinity is present only. Bhagwan himself has taken over the mind, body, everything has taken over. I'll talk more about that later on sometime. But here, right now, the point is that that extraordinary search that is described here. Parimargitavyam means one must search out that place, that padam, that dham, that realization. And to do so, dhyana. This word dhyan again in Vachanamrut Garada Pratham 1, the answer to this question of the householder devotee, Shet Govardhan Bhai. This answer, my Maharaj is saying dhyan because once we start on that process of dhyan, this particular path, actual path of light, the Archi Marg, it's going to open. You begin to open it, and it opens by the grace of Paramatma, not some artificial type of atheistic way of activating Kundalini and all that. That should never be done. If that is done, you can wind up in a lot of trouble. Right? So be very careful about that, those other kinds of paths. Sriji Maharaj has said no to that, absolutely, to do that. He's emphasized bhakti, sharanagati, and the Swarup of Paramatma. When whatever energies need to awaken in this path, they will naturally awaken. We don't have to worry about that. We have to keep our life balanced, keep our body healthy, keep our senses within a particular range. That's all good enough. Don't need to do some crazy asanas and all that. We'll not be able to do them anyway. And some problems can happen in that. So that's a totally different path. That's Ashtanga Yoga path. And particularly the asana and pranayam path, to some extent, it's good. But if one is intent on following that, you have to have a pratyaksha guru. You have to have an actual physical guru for that. It's not something you can just learn from watching these teachers on YouTube and all that. That's fine. But you have to have somebody to guide you. Otherwise, there are God knows how many people that have gotten stuck where they cannot talk even. So some problems have happened in the yogic process. I remember many years back when I was new in Satsang, Pujya Pramukh Swami Maharaj had given a pravachana, which is, I have that somewhere, it's on audio somewhere, where he said ki yoga karta beyog thai jai. That by doing all this kind of Ashtanga Yoga, all kinds of trouble can happen in that. Right? So that is not an advisable path in the Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga path is connecting with Bhagavan completely. But of course, it doesn't mean one is not taking good things from other paths. Take everything in its right balance. But bhakti is essential. Otherwise, there's potential lot of danger is actually there in just Shakti awakening and Kundalini awakening and all those kinds of things. And the main reason is that there is not adequate purification. See, even Shankaracharya ji stated that even before you get Jnana, because he emphasized Jnana and Bhakti is a support. Okay, even from that point of view, purification, Antakarana Shuddhi. So the 9 forms of devotion, Sriji Maharaj has accepted that and talked about it and propagated it. The 9 forms of devotion, they enhance purification and purify the Antakarana. Then the light of the Atma will shine. That is Jnana, Brahma Jnana. And in that Brahmic state, one is then doing Upasana. One is in a state of Upasana with Parabrahma. So these are some things to keep in mind. But anyway, in this verse in chapter 15, that tat padam parimargitavyam yasmin gata na nivartanti bhuyaha yasmin gata na nivartanti. Na nivartanti means not coming back again, back into the bhuyaha, back into this material world again. This material world is a bubble only. Millions of universes come and go. How many forms of Vishnu come and go? If you look at the Vaishnava scripture, I was looking at that just today in the Bhagavatam, in the first canto only, this is talked about, that these universes are created out of Mahat Tattva. Different forms of Bhagavan Vishnu are created out of Mahat Tattva. That is a much more tattvic discussion. Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, Shirodakashayi Vishnu. I'm not saying it right. Karanadok. I cannot say it now. I have to look at the words actually. Karanodakashayi Vishnu. Something, there's 3 forms like this. There are millions of Vishnu forms come out, basically. And then from that billions of universes come out. It's mind-blowing. We cannot imagine all that. And that Mahatattva is only part of the Chidakash, and the Chidakash is only just a fragment of the Akshardham itself. And Bhagwan is way beyond that, So all these things are very, very amazing. So when Bhagwan Krishna is saying, Tat Padam Parimargitavyam, ye bahut badi baat hai, it is beyond all of these intermediate stages, straight into the Murti of Akshardham. And that Murti is the one he is talking about inside this answer given in Vachanamrut. How amazing it is. So Yasmin Gatana Nivartanti Bhuiha Tameva Chadyam Purusham Prapadde. So he says it that the Supreme Lord is Purusham. He's described as Purusham here. That Tameva, you are that Supreme Purusha, that is the Purushottama. That is the original Purusha. Yasmin Gatan Nivartanti Bhuyaha Tameva Chadyam Purusham Prapadde Yataha Pravrittihi Prasruta Purani. The activity of this entire sansar and all of that which is going on from time immemorial is so ancient. It is Purani. Purani means ancient. So, and as a result of that, one is then able to carefully transcend it, because you cannot even find the beginning or the end of that. Na rupam asya iha tatha upalabhyate. That's the first verse of the verse number 3. You see, na antaha, na cha adihi, na cha adi, na cha sampratishta, ashvatham, suvirudha moolam, asanga shastrena dridena chatva. That's the breakdown of the words. Right? So with that, we are already at 1 hour, and we're already at 1 hour and 7 minutes. Just one or two more final points. Not final points, but just for now, because we need to take a break somewhere here. That Mahima, this is the master key. Mahima is everything. Omniscience, omnipresence, Bhagwan Sarvakarta. If you don't remember all this, only one simple thing: I am yours. Hu tamaro chu in Gujarati. Mehu tera. I'm completely yours. That's it. It's as simple as that. I am 100% yours. I'm just whatever I am, as I am yours. And you take care of me and you guide me. And this is everything. Tame Mara and Hu Tamaro. In the time of Maharaj, those Kathi Darbar, those devotees, householders who didn't know all these scriptures or anything, they said, Maharaj, we don't know all these things. We only know you. And I'm yours and you are mine. That's all you need to know. That's all. That's all. That's everything. And then in that you do your activity. Do the satsang, whatever you can. Everything else is krupa. With that, we'll stop here for now. Om Shri Sadgurubhyo Namaha. Om Shri Swaminarayanaya Namo Namaha.